Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Exiles Podcast. I'm Brooks and this is Corey. We are the Raley brothers.
Today we're going to answer questions, go over some cartridge for specific animals, why we choose the components that we do, and touch on 7BC.
So stay tuned. Welcome back everybody. You know, Corey and I running this Exile Podcast, I think we want to take this episode as an opportunity to answer some questions, but also kind of review the people that we've had on this and the impact not only they have on us, but the industry, and just kind of give people some overview on everything.
Yeah, really cool people that we got to come on. You know, some of these, like the Godfather of Mule Deer, you know, Abraham Garcia and Dustin Garcia even, you know, on the...
Not related.
Yeah, not related. But yeah, one rolls his R and the other one doesn't. But no, just and I don't know, just the people you meet by doing this and getting them on a platform that they may never had an experience, but we get to kind of connect with them. You know, we obviously get to have all these like kind of personal conversations to deep dive, but it's cool to like really have them lay out their stories of like what got them interested in all of it. I don't know, just kind of fascinating.
Well, I think we do a ton of legwork on our end of what we want to invest our time and resources in. I mean, when we first talked about a podcast, I know both of us are like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the best interest for us. Can we fill 30 minutes? Do people want to listen to it? But overall, the feedback's been phenomenal, right? You start talking and you're bringing people on that are industry leaders that have guided their whole lives, have majored in wildlife biology, like Nylan, you know, and come full circle, obviously a hunter himself, places he's been, things that he's done. I mean, he didn't tell about half the stories that we both have heard, you know, flying helicopters and surveying and just how the progression of technology has helped them and whatnot. I mean, we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
But those are the conversations that more candid happen, I think, around campfires, around in hunting camps, et cetera. And there's this plethora of knowledge out there, but to decipher or Google search or whatever, you're never going to get that.
Yeah, that's what's cool about getting them in their rooms. Like even for our little events that we're doing to kind of like elevate those guys, it's so cool to kind of like, you know, you see them on social media or whatever, and like you know the face, but you don't get like that genuine interaction. And like, I don't know, it's really cool to. These guys are super pros,
right?
You know, and they're industry leaders for a reason, and just all the connections they have, and it's just story after story. I mean, you give them a mic, they could go for hours.
No doubt. And like, you know I never really talk about baseball, et cetera, obviously being something I've done for a long time and really enjoy doing in my profession, but I never want to distract from something that is, you know, something that I would have loved to have found a way into it industry wise early on, as these guys had. Yeah. It wasn't my path. And I don't want to change anything about what I've got to do and achieved in my sport and my profession, but you know, it's cool now to have the opportunity to know good people that know where to hunt, know how to hunt, have success, and bringing in my teammates and stuff that I've done in the last couple of years, taking them on some really cool hunts and us all having a good time. And I think it was said in a podcast or two ago, but it was more of when you create that experience for somebody, it's the only thing they want after that. And I've had that personally. When you invest money or whatever and you go on a hunt and it doesn't go well, you kind of get deflated, or a tag isn't filled and you did DIY and you thought you did everything right and you prepped and you spent a lot of money on the camping equipment or the ATV to get you up and down mountains, or a trailer of some kind that you rigged and everything. Like there's investment on all sides. Yeah. There's nobody going hunting that is technically free in any realm, because your time has value too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a financial commitment that almost creates a responsibility to kind of be successful somewhat, you know, like you're looking for those successes. And, you know, it's also a part of hunting is just, you know, failing and learning from it too. But like you said, we keep talking about these old podcasts, but time for a lot of people now is the most valuable thing. Like on all these guys, like kind of origin stories, for lack of a better term, they start out like out there all day, you know, and that's not really possible for a lot of people once they kind of get older and more responsibilities and families.
It's cool to kind of take in their profession and what it has evolved to. Every one of them had to adjust, reevaluate, improve. Yeah. And all of them are extremely humble and successful in their own right, but there is a sense of professionalism that I'm attracted to because they are passionate about what they do.
Yeah. And it's
they
just
want to be better.
The building blocks that they've created, like Abraham going from like the family whitetail ranch to going to Sonora and like really getting into genetics and like being the trailblazer of that, and then jumping off the deep end, going to Coahuila and like, you know, introducing a species that hasn't been there for a long time or ever really.
But just to take that on, that is their risk and that is their livelihood. And these guys are, you know, spend a lot of time and energy and using their expertise to kind of make those things happen, as we all have to risk reward. When I throw a breaking ball 3-2, et cetera, like there's some risk and reward, or, you know, trying to sneak by somebody or facing the heart of an order. Like all of us have this natural analysis of what's the upside here, what's the downside. And when you have true professionals that are successful at what they do, there's a lot of like resemblance or connection there.
Yeah. I think one thing that's like obvious across like all the podcasts that we've done with those guys is like the relationships are everything, and the experience is 50 or more % of what people remember, not necessarily the trophy on the wall,
right?
You know, and like you were talking about getting some of your buddies and teammates into some of this stuff. Like we've had some candid conversations about it, but they may not be the most educated on it, and they just maybe don't value it to the extent of like, well, you know, I can do this over here and it's the same. It's like, right. No, like the people that we've been connected with and created our own relationships with, it's just it's a different level,
right?
Different level of people.
And then there's also the lack of experience, myself included. You're gone 10 months out of the year. You have spring training starting early February, and you run all the way, you know, potentially playing the World Series in early November. What time did you have to go practice shooting?
Oh, yeah.
What time did you have to go hunt in Africa, because the best time of the year is in the middle of summer? What times you had to run to Alaska in early September? You don't. There's no time in my schedule to do that. So you're not behind the 8 ball, but it's when you can fast track your time's important. You only have 3 or 4 months of an off season. You got to capitalize. What's my time and energy best spent? Can someone handle this for me, blah blah blah? And so that's what's been cool for me. It's like, hey, trust me, this is gonna be a good time. Like I only do cool stuff like when it comes to hunting because I have been surrounding myself by really good people.
That's what it's all about. You know, it's so cool. Like we look forward to doing a bunch more of these and getting even more personalities and more industry leaders in, just to kind of hear their stories and create our own kind of connections and connecting our clients and local market to people that we really trust, and obviously going on hunts ourselves and getting more and more experience. So I don't know, lots to come. I'm super excited about it.
No doubt. I'm super pumped, and like I said, I didn't know me and you would never work out on a podcast, but I guess we're a little bit of yin, a little bit of yang in there, but we're doing okay. So thank you all for being patient with us, and I don't know, these intros that we do are something else. So if y'all ever have to do a podcast, please work on your intro and stuff. But let's get into some of the Q&As we've been asked. You've been doing this a long time with the rifle building stuff. The number one question I feel like you're always asked is, I want versatility. So what I thought would be the best idea is if we kind of went over some species, and then just all success. You've had a lot of animals you've harvested when we were growing up, and then also being in the Valley the last couple of years, testing cartridges and rounds and things like that. So I'm going to start with just the alley-oop of all of them. Whitetail deer, give me, if you can't nail down one, that's fine, but I'll give you 2 calibers, and why that's kind of something you've pushed people towards.
Yeah, I think whitetail is such like a entry level for a lot of people. They just get started with it, whether it's a spike or a doe, or a lot of people's first experience, especially where we come from, it's first right out of the box is the whitetail, and for that, for first timers, the 6mm Creedmoor is bee's knees, super low recoil. We can build them in short barrels, suppress them. There's just not a lot of people that don't shoot those well. Factory available ammo all over the place. So that's like the staple for us is going 6 Creedmoor for those kind of deer blinds, 100-yard feeders, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then I guess elaborating on that, most shots in South Texas, not everybody, not everywhere, and won't make absolutes out of this, but we're looking 300 yards in more times than not.
Yeah, for sure. Some places even worse, right? The cover gets more and more, and you got to cut senderos, and you're hunting roads, and that's just what it is out there. I would say that's just for general, everyday kind of whitetail stuff. I think for the guys really hunting the trophies, shooting the 170 plus deer, probably 6.5 PRC, is another great option for kind of the same reasons of the short barrel, suppress, but you shoot a little heavier bullet, a little more velocity. Yeah. Shoot those 140s and in that kind of a bullet range. So,
well, it kind of checks all the boxes. You have enough velo, you have enough expansion, a lot of good things happen.
Yeah,
on
really
a
good
shot.
bullets, like high fragmenting bullets are obviously great. Shoot them in the shoulder, not back behind. I think that's something, another, kind of ask another question that, or to present another question we get asked is like the exit wound. That's like a big one as well. And we kind of have two methods of kind of thinking about that. Blood trails is kind of what you're looking for when you start talking exits, which can be great, but sometimes they don't bleed either way,
Especially the type of animal or hide or whatever.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say an exit is always the right answer. It's kind of a fail safe. That's why people, go to that. But a high fragmenting bullet, multiple wound channels, like that's catastrophic damage. If we just want something that's going to pass through the vitals
Yeah.
and fully go through and end up on the offside shoulder, because all that energy stayed inside that animal, and we're doing all the damage. We didn't waste any going out the other
Right.
side. So
Especially the quality of the bullets and the tips and expansion and things right out of the gate when they make contact. Not like a ballistic tip, but just
yeah,
on that note, another question is like, I mean, we were definitely taught this way too, and that's changed over the years, but shooting behind the shoulder, right? But in reality, if you were to look at a deer on the hoof, that is actually like considered their elbow.
Yeah.
And then their shoulder is higher up in there. So it's like, it's deceiving, because we've always, or at least me personally, I've looked at the elbow and been, that's the shoulder. And I've started behind that.
Yeah.
Have we found most of the animals? Yes. But it was never a 5, 10, 15 yard kind of harvest. It was always they're running.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you actually look at like the anatomy of an animal and you're like, that's not even the shoulder.
Yeah.
How long have I thought that was the shoulder?
Yeah, and then you get those guys that are all about like the high shoulder stuff, and that's great. It's essentially like where the shoulder connects to the spine is high shoulder, quote unquote, and you basically hit that little bone up there, and it absolutely shocks them. It basically stuns them straight down, and that's where you get those awesome kill videos and stuff like that of like just dirt naps, dirt nap. Which is all good, but the negative of a high shoulder shot, I think, is there's no man's land right behind that, and there's a tip of lung up there, and those deer are going to go for a very long time. Exactly. So, and then you also hear guys that shoot high shoulder and they knock them out, and they're all celebrating, and the thing gets up and takes off, and that's kind of where the shock of hitting the body stuns the spinal cord, and then that gives you that dirt nap type feel, but
in reality,
you didn't actually hit the shoulder, and you just stunned him, and he's up and he's gone, and we're not going to find that deer.
Right. Because there's not a lot of blood there. There's no vitals there.
No.
So yeah, it's kind of a risk reward for sure. All right, let's move on to went whitetail application being 300 yards in. Let's go some bigger game as we move out. Elk, mule deer.
Yeah. Mule deer are somewhere right there with the whitetail for me. It definitely turns into a distance game after that, because mule deer are slightly bigger body, but thin. The skin is going to be relatively the same, maybe slightly thicker, but we can get away with some like lighter bullet stuff on mule deer for sure. It's just whenever we start shooting 400 or 500 yards, it's like, we may need a little bit more energy, may need a little better, like heavier bullets, not gonna get blown around so bad in the wind and those things. So 6.5 PRC, like probably not 6 Creedmoor so much on a mule deer, but 6.5 PRC would also be a great fit for that. And then as you get in situations where you have to shoot even further, especially this year, talking to people, 7 PRC was obviously great for us. We've found a niche there, building them in like some 19.5-inch barrels rather than 20s, just trying to save a little bit of weight.
And would you say most people building 9 are building with a cane?
Oh yeah. That's kind of the idea, Once people start shooting suppress, it's kind of hard to go backwards, So
I would agree with that. I think most people, and now with just how quick turnarounds and stuff are, it's kind of a no-brainer. Whereas, it was the weeds 5-6 years ago when we first started buying them, and 6-8 months later, you're doing your fingerprints at the local sheriff's office and walking in there, and you're like,
walk out with just
black hands. They give you the little orange pump thing, and you're like, let me scrub up here, but y'all gonna let me out of here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I remember doing some of that, and I'm like, do I really want that?
Yeah.
And then nowadays you have kiosks in the middle of your showroom and people are doing fingerprints and everything right in front of you in the slingshot. And one time,
turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love that it's become more of a common thing for people.
It kind of transitioned from like, I want a can that's good on every gun to now it's like, I want a can for every gun.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Well, it used to be trying to match your threads so you could jump with your can all around, and then that became super inefficient. You're like, I forgot my can, because now what am I gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, moving on. Some of the longer range Africa stuff, we've heard stories. We haven't gone. Your 600, 800 yards, heavy winds. What would you be recommending from the plains game?
Yeah, just
Eland. I mean, they're covering it all. I mean, talking to these guys, I mean, I couldn't even tell you the 30 species that some of these guys have on their places, which is super cool. But kind of go through that.
Yeah, you obviously got like your plains game stuff that's more antelope and small game like that. So some of these guys are like shooting 6.5 Creedmoors are great success. Those are the guys over there that maybe limited on some cartridge availability stuff, so they got to do what they can on that. So I think that's great for the plains game stuff, and just kind of talking to those guys a little bit more about it. It's kind of the middle ground of, they say, we used to have big guns, we used to have small guns. We'd take one out and then we go see a big kudu, and we got the 220 or 22-250, and it's like,
right.
Here we go. The chase is on kind of deal. So I think, that's a good fit. That's kind of what those guys talk about for over there. But if you were going to take a gun, I mean, I know I'm kind of like repeating the same stuff, but the 6.5 PRC would be great.
7 PRC, and that some of the guys that we know have built and sent over there. And then tell me now, I mean, because we're talking Africa, where's the 375 that you built for a couple of guys? Where those fit in?
Yeah, those are the guys that are hunting like the Eland and then the Cape Buffalo and stuff. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, over there, dangerous game, like the minimum caliber you can shoot is a 375. So you're required to shoot over that. And most of the time, like, guides will have a gun or something. But we just started getting into building some of those, and you'd be surprised. Like, we're cutting them down to like 22 inches and doing some of those like over barrel suppressors that kind of go with the Africa deal. Kind of, that's a big bore, not necessarily like a ton of recoil, but you're shooting a 300 grain bullet at the same time.
I was going to ask you, what's a velo in the grains?
Oh man.
Well, I've seen the case. It's a big case.
I would think, man, I'm kind of winging it here. Probably like 27, 2800 is probably where you're going to be in
that 22 is shooting a 300.
Yeah, 300 grain bullet. Somewhere in
there. What ammo have you enjoyed shooting or breaking them in with?
Trying to shoot bonded bullets for sure, just to try to like stay on track. For the dangerous game stuff, you may want to shoot a solid just so you get that full penetration. Same kind of deal there. Bonded bullets, you're gonna have a bigger wound cavity, and then the solids are going to penetrate max on a single path, so make a great first shot. It is a great option. Bond is just going to give you a little bit bigger wound channel. Right. So
what's funny is when you start hearing guys tell their stories about hunting those Cape Buffalo, and just the fact that I didn't know this, but that they will go from, if they're at elevation, the bottom is at 3,000 feet, and they said they'll find them all the way up at like 7,500. I thought that was fascinating. I didn't know Eland traveled up like that. I mean, around here, the exotic ranches that we've been on and seen, a
couple hundred feet,
and he's kind of just roaming around the open area in the thicket.
Yeah,
that's a whole different experience there. So pretty intriguing experience, I feel like, when you can hunt all those different types of animals in one area.
Yeah, super cool to have that kind of animal size, that's available in Africa. I think is a cool deal. So another one, just to throw it out there, 300 Win Mag, kind of can't go wrong with it.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you've left your ammo back in the States, and they'll have a box on the shelf over there. So
if you had to pick one of hunting most of these things, right? Obviously, dangerous game has its own requirements, but if you're going to hunt something stateside, and somebody was like, "Man, I can only do one rifle with you. What are you going to build him?" To kind of check as many boxes as you can.
Yeah, I think I've probably already alluded to it. It's that 6.5 PRC for us is just such a winner from the rifles we're trying to build, with the lightweight stuff and the super packable, light, low recoil, suppressed. It just checks so many boxes for us. I could shoehorn in the 27 Tombstone in there too. I mean, that's what we're going to take everywhere. Obviously it's our baby, but it's proven it. We've gone to the King Ranch and shot some nilgai out there and seen the performance on them, and taken them out to West Texas and killed mule deer, and then the stag in Oklahoma. So I feel like we've tested it
More than most any critic would, intentionally, right?
Yeah.
We want to check as many boxes as we can when it comes to developing something of your own. We're like, no, we need to be buttoned up here, here, and here. And that's why I think it's been a cool, slow release. We had this idea in 18, and it's taken us 4 or 5 years to be like, all right, now we'll do the big brass order. We'll do it. And so I'm glad you didn't allude to it anytime. All right, for everybody listening, this is not a Homer's podcast. This is the truth.
Yeah.
The 6.5 PRC, the 7 PRC are unbelievable. We think the 27 Tombstone is pretty awesome in its own regard. Not because we created, but because it is unique. It is for the 270 fans. It is all that. So we will be carrying the 27 Tombstone. I know I will. I have the 22-inch one and the 17 and a half. And I love both versions of it.
I think it's the bullet weight. It's a 6.5 PRC, but it's shooting a 160 to 170 grain bullet. Like
It's hard to beat.
That's where like the 7 PRC for us came in so big. It's like some guys just want to shoot a bigger bullet. They feel better shooting a bigger bullet. They feel like their margin of error is more, even though maybe that's not the case. But it's just the comfortability of getting 170 grains in them versus 140. Some guys really like to hang their hat on that. So that's kind of where the Tombstone kind of falls for me.
Oh yeah, and I think we'll have a great following, guys that want something different. I think we're going to touch on it here in a minute with the 7BC stuff, but when you create something, especially a Wildcat, there's so much involved in that whole process. And I know we've discussed in a prior episode in depth on the Tombstone, but it's just a reminder that if the goal is to bring something new and a very efficient to the market, I think it has its place. And I think that's where we were trying to land. It wasn't let's create this to put our name on the map and it's already been done. And, I think that's a cool way that we've done that, obviously, to scale it and to proof to market and have ammo in every store. I mean, that's a kind of a long-term plan for us.
Yeah.
But in reality, the people, what do we have? 20 to 50 Tombstones to this point out there roaming around, some with 300 WSM brass, all you first guys out there, appreciate you.
Yeah.
But guys have success. They send us pictures and this is really a cool caliber. I think that's cool for me and you to experience, knowing how much legwork we kind of did and cutting the barrels down and figuring all that out. I really enjoyed that process, and I hope people do too.
Yeah, no, that was a labor of love, getting it off the ground. So yeah, it's definitely our baby, but like we said, it's exceeded our expectations. We set out with a goal, but then going and doing it is cool.
Yeah. And it checks a lot of things that we're interested in anyways. You want to do the mule deer hunting, et cetera. It's right on those lines. So anyways, let's jump into the newest caliber. I guess got released in January by Federal, and you're the expert. Let's go over the 7BC for everybody.
Yeah, super cool concept. We'll see how it all plays out. At the time of this, no ammo is available yet. But just from, feedback that we've kind of, gotten across the industry, proprietary kind of case, what it's made out of is made out of steel. It's supposed to handle about 75 to 80,000 PSI, which is, 15 to 20 thousandths over what's kind of standard in the market,
or what people would even be willing to do.
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Risk reward.
Kind of what's advertised for sure. So that's interesting in itself. By doing that, by increasing the pressure, you get to change the physics a little bit. Typically, like thinking of just standard brass, the bigger the case volume and the faster it's going to go, just across the board, all things being the same, all shooting the same bullets. The more powder we can put behind this, the more velocity we're going to get. By increasing the pressure, you kind of shortcut that, and you kind of cheat the system a little bit and increase the pressure to get that velocity increase. So it's interesting if they do end up doing, like, I think in their 24-inch barrels, they're predicting maybe 32 to 3,300 feet per second with 170 grain bullets, which is wild.
Okay, give me a comparison. If I'm 7 PRC or I'm 28 Nosler, where are we at?
Yeah, you're 7 PRC. You're probably in the 2900s. If you hand load, you may get a little over that. And then 28 Nosler, you're 3,000, 3,100 in kind of the same stuff. So this is like, if not a 28 Nosler in a smaller case, it's very close to it.
Because you're creating more pressure, you got a little bit more powder, and you're able to push it a little bit more.
Less powder though. Yeah.
I mean, okay, but you're spiking pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
With your
So
case design, exactly.
yeah.
Kind of getting a little more blowback.
Yeah, some different powders, some faster burning stuff that gets to pressure faster, and that also creates more velocity. So it's really cool concept. We'll see how it all plays out. Some questions that like come with the increased pressure that I don't know if have been answered yet is, because they kind of advertise them in short barrels, from 16 and a half, 18s, 20s.
How's that work?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. We want to talk about like barrel life. What does pressure do to barrel life in the long term? Like, does this now turn this cartridge into like a 500 or 600 rounds before we're kind of talking about maybe swapping a barrel out on this?
Yeah, because it's just torching the throat.
Yeah. There's potential. There's just, we'll see.
There will be a effect. Now, is it a big one or a little one? That'll be determined.
Yeah. Because I would say like in a 28 nozzler, for instance, you're like 800 to 1200 rounds is like max barrel life. And for a hunting gun, that's probably not necessarily like a big concern. 28 nozzler is not a gun you're going to take to the range for most people and really just go blink with it.
Let me go shoot 40 times with this today.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
remember that, right?
Yeah. You'll come back with a sore shoulder and less in your wallet for sure.
No kidding. They're proud of those.
Yeah.
So. I mean, that's all interesting. I think that anything else like a consumer would be like interested in when it comes to 7BC, or when you're stepping out there with the newer rounds and ammunition, like obviously ammo availability has always been the number one thing. So if you can't find it on the shelf, if you can't drive up at Bass Pro or online and you feel like I can get this anywhere, it may not be the time to build one just yet.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Like if we really want to just kind of put it all out there for everybody, just to honest observations, like why didn't the 6.8 Western have success?
Yeah.
You would lean more into ammo availability and kind of readily available for every gunsmith to have a reamer and like this overall long-term business model.
Yeah. The 6.8 Western, I think it fell flat for a couple of reasons, and there's probably some people out there that like it, but I would say a really tough time. They launched it as kind of COVID was happening, so they really got whacked with that. But even before that, they released a cartridge and there wasn't any ammo available for the most part. So people were buying these factory guns or wanting us to build them. And we were like, hey man, I don't have any ammo to do this barrel break in. We'd be happy to build it. We got the reamer here. It's the unknowns. And that's the scary thing about new cartridges in general. That is one cool thing. If Federal does do it, they got 5 different ammo options with some really great bullets. So if they can stay on top of all that, it could be pretty solid, but
yeah, I mean, from what we've seen, just from the few announcements that we have seen on ammo options, but also the price point, if you're around where Hornady's at on most things, you can probably create a market. But if you're pumping into that $120, $140 for a box stuff, I know most people would be pretty reserved on that's a good plan, or that's any different or big enough upgrade or change from what I already have,
or anything like that. Yeah, factory ammo is kind of all in that same kind of window of the velocity variations from lot to lot and from really box to box. You're never going to be able to get the hand load consistency out of this stuff. So whenever they start charging $100 for a box of ammo, and then you get the chrono out and you're like, man, I thought I would have paid for a little bit more. I'd get a little bit, and that's not necessarily the case. That
was probably the most mind-blowing thing when we used to have the what was that long stick extension that we put on the end of a barrel right when they first come out. Now you got like these standalone pads for muzzle velocity. What was
the Magneto Speed?
Magneto Speed, right? We were attaching that and strapping it down and all that. Trying not to hit the tip when it was going by. And just the first time you actually look at a box and your barrel's the same length, you're shooting that round and you're 150 feet off of that box, and you're like,
whoa,
why is what am I doing wrong? And you start to be like, okay, we don't know what elevation, we don't know the barrel length that this is at. And so
and some of them don't even specify what barrel lengths they're actually advertising on the box. It's just a number.
Right.
And a dope chart that's like arbitrary.
I mean, how many times have we tried to use that dope chart though?
Yeah.
Like, 12 inches of adjustment or at 300 yards, you make that adjustment and you're, 3 inches low. You're like, what is that?
Wait a minute.
This box is different than what I'm getting in the field.
Yeah.
But that's where the information and more research, more up-to-date apps, ability to go test your rifle on a range, and get more accurate information to give you a higher chance of success. So I think there's been this gradual increase of guys having more success, more capable of long-range shooting. It's more common with people buying rifles, not from just us, but in the industry in general. because the information's more readily available. Guys, I bet guys 20 years ago, I cannot imagine a guy shooting 800 yards and like you hear the folk, oh, I had him at 600 yards. Like, how'd you even range it?
Yeah, exactly.
He was just across a canyon and he just
exactly.
lift the finger.
Yeah.
Like, I bet
that could you imagine the celebration after getting that done?
Oh man, you just keep sending them. That's all I'm doing. I mean, if that's a trophy, but and teach their own. Like if you don't have a ton of back in the day, if you didn't have a ton of field experience, you don't learn those lessons.
Or like learning those like military mill holdovers.
Oh yeah, the papers we first got, and just trying to like reading through this and how this all works.
But like you got to be so sharp to like remember all that data on the spot when you need it. Like that's high stress, you know. And,
and on the fly. And we all know that hunting, especially any kind of big game or whatever, like it usually happens really quick when it does happen. There's not sitting on top of the hill. Oh, he's going to walk out in this opening and I'm ready to rock. I have yet to have one of those.
That happens very often.
So I don't know. I feel like this is 7BC. I hope it has success because it's cool when new rounds come out. And I know you get excited about that stuff.
Yeah. New cartridges in the market are always great for people like us, you know, that chase the latest and greatest, you know, just getting new people interested in it. Maybe they got a 7 mag. They didn't see the point of a 7 PRC because it's, you know, an offshoot of that, a modern take on it, which is great. You know, there's a spot for it and we've sold a bunch of them, but the 7BC is groundbreaking, you know, proprietary case that handles more pressure, that has a lot of upside if we can, you know, get it figured out. Right. So we look forward to, you know, getting some built, getting the ammo, doing the testing. You know, it'll be interesting to see like an 18-inch barrel, a 20-inch barrel, like what that does, you know. Well,
just real quick, let's do a recap. Obviously, we've talked a lot about animals and cartridges and stuff, but the last questions that you always get asked and something that you're passionate about. Why do we, building rifles, Exile, why do you use the components you use? What do you know, we've touched on barrels and barrel links, you know, actions. I think Defiance is about as good as it gets, and that's why open and close one. Yeah. See if it rattles. Yeah. You know,
take it to the back of the stroke.
Yeah, exactly. We get dirt and it still operates well, and the tolerance. I mean, it's just hard to beat that. Yeah. And if you haven't ever held one, you probably can't justify in your mind why they're so expensive. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like EDM. It's next level technology to create the best of the best.
Consistency though for us, like on our end of machining them and putting barrels on them, it's just we go back to it time and time again. It's like keep going back to the well. It's just so repeatable. The tolerance and stuff are crazy. Like you said, the bolt slop, like, so a lot of people like to talk about smooth actions, you know, and you're like, yeah, everybody loves a smooth action, but there's a difference between like a smooth sloppy action and a tight smooth action. Right. And that's what we really found with Defiance. So that's just one of the many components that we use that is, we believe, and obviously in the market, they are top tier, beyond a shadow of a doubt, between their, you know, Ruckus Hunter, which is our, Desperado that has that integral rail on top, great weight there. You got your antis to save weight on the short action stuff, and then you know, they're even coming out with titanium stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you next. What do you think of all that?
Yeah, titanium have always been. I mean, we tried some out when we first started, and they just weren't like, the weight is obviously like the obvious. Like you pick them up, you're like, oh man, this is 6 ounces difference. Like, for people chasing lightweight, it almost seems like, why didn't you do this, guys? Or why didn't y'all do this from the get-go? Right. If that was the whole point of the lightweight. But you start working on it and it's like, it's grabby. You know, titanium has like this grabby kind of, you know, kind of metal that doesn't really, it's not the smoothest option. The titanium versus stainless, it's not really that close. And until you kind of get them side by side and really test them, there's a difference there. And that's why Defiance was pretty hesitant in the past about not doing the titanium. You know, they literally came out with the anti, which is like not titanium, was kind of their slogan for it. They found a way to mill out the receiver and stuff to lighten the weight, and they got off like 2 ounces, 2 ounces off of a titanium. So that was kind of the deal. But now they've jumped off of that. And, you know, whenever I called my sales guy, I said, all right, give me the pitch. Like, y'all told me, you know, y'all didn't want to touch titanium. What changed? And I'm like, well, we've got it. You know, I was like, it's not grabby. They said, no, it's slick. So
that's a big change in the industry.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're about out of time for today, but for all y'all, just keep commenting, keep asking questions. We ask the same ones every day. We take a lot of pride in our question asking ability, not just between us and how we can get better, but as the industry grows, information grows, we want to be that springboard of not necessarily giving information, but learning as well. And I think we take a lot of pride, and I think we do a really good job of kind of soaking that in. And if we don't have an answer, finding one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the endless pursuit, of trying to make the best products, and not being a used car salesman of just chasing the brand new fad, like justifying it and knowing that whatever conversation I have with someone is like really the real deal, this isn't a fad or anything. So it's fun to chase the new components, but just making sure they fit the market and they're going to last.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, you treat it as if you were going to buy it yourself.
Yeah.
What components would I want?
Yeah, I mean, we invest in barrels and reamers and time to build these guns, and we don't want customers to come back and be like, oh, we missed on this one, you know. So it's a little bit on us too. Like we obviously pride ourselves in taking people through the experience and the journey of building a custom rifle. So that's obviously part of it, Right. Of just hammering home on the things that are going to stand to last and make an impact on the market.
Yeah, no doubt. So once again, thanks for tuning in on this Exile podcast, and until next time.